Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. It's Hugh Hewitt. It's Monday, May 11th, in the year of the plague, 2020. And yes, we are over 80,000 deaths from COVID in the United States, 1.36 million cases, 4 million people around the globe. Thank you, Chinese Communist Party infected, 282,000 dead. But if you're listening, and even if you're in the hospital, you're staying alive, I am playing Bee Gees today at the request of Captain Mark Vandroff. It's his favorite band. And he spends Saturday night like Lilacs. He and Lilacs are the two disco guys in my audience, but Lilacs is never up at this hour. So I got a request last night from Captain Mark. And again, Vandroff is he's a great patriot, still at work, knows more about building ships than anybody I know. But bring it up, please. I want to tell people about he has a white pantsuit. And he's a Florida Gator, so he doesn't know much about. Actually, he's an Annapolis guy, but he roots for the Gators and doesn't know anything about football. But he can. I mean, for an older guy, he can cut a rug, and this is how he's been doing. He and Mrs. V are just spending the weekends working on their routine. And he asked me, could I just play Bee Gees music today? So I'm going to do that. All for you, Captain Mark. Pick up the pace on the treadmill. Sad news this morning we got all the different news, COVID news, General Flynn news. Oh my gosh, the Obama Department of Justice. What a mess. What a scandal. What they did to Michael Flynn is going to go down in the annals of the Department of Justice as its worst scandal ever, including the Ted Stevens scandal. And I'll talk about that today. Boris Johnson gave a great speech. We've got a lot of economic news. We got a lot of great guests today. Liz Cheney coming along, Tim Alberta, Josh Rogin, Mike Allen. Salena Zito is here to brighten your day. Congressional candidate Mike Garcia in California is 25th. They have a special election tomorrow. Mike Garcia is along. Make sure you vote for Mike tomorrow in California's 25th. But I want to begin because sad news this morning. Jerry Stiller died. And if you didn't like Jerry Stiller, I don't know what's wrong with you. His son Ben is up for grabs. You can like or dislike Ben, but you can't dislike Jerry. And I go back to the days when Ann and Jerry Stiller were together on, I think, the Ed Sullivan show, right? And Mira and Jerry Stiller did the Ed Sullivan, I think. I think I was like 6 years old watching Ann and Jerry. But you know him from Seinfeld, and our hat is off to Frank Costanza.
A new holiday was born.
That was, of course, Festivus. Frank Costanza died last night of natural causes. His son, Ben, posting, I'm sad to say my father, Jerry Stiller, passed away from natural causes. He was a great dad and grandfather and will be the most dedicated husband to Ann for about 62 years. He will be greatly missed. Love you, Dad. Okay, Ben got a point there. You get a point for that. Let's get to the news. I want to talk about Mike Flynn, first of all, because they didn't talk about him on the Sunday shows. I predicted on Friday, you're going to get very little about Mike Flynn. General Mike Flynn was persecuted and prosecuted. He did, in fact, lie to the vice president about what he had said, although it is possible he simply, I don't know. The vice president thought he lied to him, and I trust Mike Pence. But he should not have been prosecuted, and that has become crystal clear. Chris Christie on This Week yesterday had this to say. By the way, he notes the fact that he misled the vice president, but in any White House, everybody misleads the vice president, so that's not like news from Krypton. It is a reference that he makes to a second scandal as well that you should know. The Supreme Court struck down the Obama Department of Justice convictions for Bridgegate aimed at Chris Christie aid. So it was just this is Chris Christie summing up worst week in DOJ history in a long time, cut number 9.
Yeah, well, listen, he was dishonest to the vice president, and that doesn't change. But, George, there's a bigger point here that the president, former President Obama, is running away from. The history of his Justice Department right now is getting pretty battered this week. The conduct of these FBI agents in dealing with Mike Flynn, I was a U.S. attorney and worked with FBI agents and helped to direct them. What they did with Mike Flynn was a absolutely classic perjury trap. They knew what the truth was of what he had done or not done before they walked in. They didn't need to interview him. And they went in there and then wrote notes afterwards about trying to decide whether or not they should try to get the truth out of him or whether they should try to get him to lie so that he would get fired or charged. And then this week as well, in one that involved me and my former team, the Supreme Court rejected 9-0 a false prosecution that was brought by the Obama Justice Department and a vindictive prosecutor, politically motivated, against folks who worked for me when I was governor of New Jersey. You know, it's a bad week for the Obama Justice Department, for Jim Comey and his FBI, and for Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch and their Justice Department. You can't run away from that. These are unprecedented times because we're taking the covers off of what was some really awful conduct by prosecutors and investigators. And you know, George, I usually stand up for these folks, but you cannot defend this conduct.
Now, what was interesting, Christie is right, but because he was personally involved in one case, he got the emphasis wrong. The Wall Street Journal today has a headline, Barack Obama on Michael Flynn, the lawyer president misstates the crime and the real threat to justice. And the fact of the matter, if you go to HughHewitt.com and scroll down, you'll see my long piece, too long for any other publication, because I'm worked up about this, the exoneration of General Flynn and the silence of the lambs, also known as the Manhattan Beltway media elite. General Flynn was my guest in 2016. I don't want any of your listeners to think that there's an enemy that exists on this planet that cannot be defeated, he told me. It's a guy who had been fighting in Afghanistan against those killers, and then he tracked down Abu Musab al-Zarqawi's terrorists. He killed him. He was not a fan of Secretary Clinton. She's got a bunch of people around her that are all of this Obama administration. They're waiting in the wings to come right back in. I mean, most people don't even know the nature of ISIS, of these. He was so down on the Ben Rhodeses of the world. She's got a personal staff of like 900 people. I mean, they're just all sycophants, just waiting to get back into government to keep going in the direction that we are going. And that remains, by the way, the choice before us. Do we want to go back to appeasement or do we want to stay strong come November? But it turns out we now have the documents. We now have the proof. And Andy McCarthy has been breaking it down. They set up General Flynn not because of any material reason, not because of any investigation, but to get him out of the White House because he would have discovered what was going on with their attempt to destroy Donald Trump. It is that simple. Now, Judge Emmett Sullivan still has this case. And he had Ted Stevens' case, the U.S. Senator to whom the Department of Justice previously had sunk to a low in prosecuting. But this is a new low. And I hope Sullivan goes off. He might not. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know Judge Sullivan. I haven't followed the case that closely, but I know what I know. This was a terrible abuse of power. This is a prosecutor out of control. Let me check the markets. Birch Gold Group. All right. Birch Gold Group tells me every day, check the market at the start. And right now, banks, they have no idea which way things are going to go with this economy. Right now, do you have a plan? If the stilts get knocked out, if we go into a Great Depression, do you have something to fall back on? Do you have any gold in your portfolio? Because that's where Birch Gold comes in. You can text my name, Hugh, to 474747, and I suggest you do. Get some gold or diversify your retirement. The Dow went up on on Friday, 455 points. The NASDAQ, 141, and the S&P up 48. And right now, overseas, New England and Germany are both down. But the 10 years up at 0.68%. Oil's at 25.50. Gold is at a great entry point at 1703. It's still well below 1900. You got to get diversified before the market turns on you. Go to HughGold.com, HughGold.com. The papers are full of optimism about the market today. I don't know. I really don't know. I'll give you some headlines when we come back, but I do know you should check with Birch Gold. Text my name, Hugh, to 474747. Stay tuned. I really don't know if I can follow through on Mark Vandroff's request. I know he loves the Bee Gees, but a whole day of Bee Gees music, Captain Mark, I don't know. I know it gets him through the quarantine. Welcome back, America. Lots of headlines this morning. Let me run through them for you on this, the first day of the week. Iran, its Navy needs some work. In a tragic incident, 19 sailors were killed when an Iranian missile frigate fired a missile on another Iranian missile frigate. The death toll is 19, and this is why they ought not to get close to American ships, because we actually know what we're shooting at, and the same result will come out. Wuhan, where the Chinese Communist Party has unsuccessfully attempted to cover up the origin of the virus. Wuhan, where the virus that has killed so many people came out of, it's back. They relaxed their strict quarantine in April, and a cluster of new infections came back yesterday. Here's the most ominous story. 3 children in New York die of virus-related condition. I reported on Friday that 50 children across the United States had developed something akin to the Kawasaki syndrome, but it's not the same thing. And it's now up to 75 children in the United States, and 3 of them died. 85 children have it. 85 children. And it has inflammatory symptoms rather than respiratory conditions. They are mostly toddlers or elementary school age. Governor Cuomo said yesterday, "We thought that young people were not affected by COVID-19. We are not so sure that is the fact anymore." The symptoms resemble Kawasaki disease. But 75 out of the entire country, so it's not a panic about it yet, but it's something that pediatricians and emergency rooms have to be looking for. The United States has accused China of attempts to hack coronavirus research. Why wouldn't they? They steal everything else. Look, this election is going to come down to, do you want to go back to the appeasement of the Obama era of China and Iran, or do you want to be tough? It's going to be, do you want defense spending to be where it needs to be, or do you want to cut it to Obama era letters? Do you want Obama judges? Do you want Trump judges? Do you want to get out of this economic hole with deregulation and market forces, or do you want to have a bunch of Joe Biden people running and telling you what to do every day? Big story over the weekend. It is a story. Ahmaud Arbery's fatal shooting in February has been referred to the Department of Justice to investigate. You can trust Barr's Department of Justice. Thank goodness it isn't Eric Holder or Loretta Lynch or that group, that gang that corrupted the Department of Justice into going after Michael Flynn. A story from the Financial Times: U.S.-China decoupling accelerates in the first quarter of 2020. Shanghai Disneyland reopened. I think the Magic Kingdom might do well to cut ties and spin off its China property. I'm just not too sure shareholders are going to want to have anything to do with China after this disaster. After this worldwide catastrophe unleashed on the world by the President Xi and his Chinese Communist Party. The U.S. has drafted nursing home guidelines, and of course it's got critics. I love this fact. They took the guidelines and they shopped them around, the Wall Street Journal did, and they found an assistant professor at Johns Hopkins to say they're bad. Guess what? You're going to be able to find any set of guidelines, shop them around, and you'll find someone to say it's bad. You're just going to do that. Eventually, they got to figure out what to do, and they'll do that. Factories closed for good as coronavirus cuts demand. This is the Wall Street Journal. Factory furloughs across the U.S. are becoming permanently closed. Caterpillar is closing plants in Germany. Boat and motorcycle maker Polaris is closing a plant in Syracuse. Goodyear Tire closing one in Alabama. Thank you, China. Thank you, China. Rental car groups are fighting for survival. Big story in the Financial Times this morning. Every May, they get these big reports. Usually you can't get a car in Europe. That's not the case. They're all over the place. People have stopped traveling. Airbnb, close to collapse. WeWork is renegotiating mortgages. There is a great reset going on brought about by the Chinese Communist Party's unleashing of the world by its recklessness of the Wuhan virus. I'll bring you more after Mike Allen comes in in the next segment of Monday morning edition of the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by No Safe Spaces.
And so every day, with ever-increasing data, we will be monitoring the R and the number of new infections and the progress we are making. And if we as a nation begin to fulfill the conditions I have set out, then in the next few weeks and months, we may be able to go further. In step 2, at the earliest by June the 1st, after half-term, we believe we may be in a position to begin the phased reopening of shops and to get primary pupils back into schools, in stages beginning with reception, year 1 and year 6. Our ambition is that secondary pupils facing exams next year will get at least some time with their teachers before the holidays, and we'll shortly be setting out detailed guidance on how to make it work in schools and shops and on transport. And step 3, at the earliest by July and subject to all these conditions and further scientific advice, if and only if the numbers support it, we will hope to reopen at least some of the hospitality industry and other public places, provided they're safe and enforce social distancing.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. That's Boris Johnson giving a speech a couple hours ago about the reopening of Great Britain that is every bit as tentative as you heard, full of Boris's energy, but tentative because they just don't know. I'm joined by Mike Allen of Axios. Of course, his Axios AM is what I read first thing every morning. As soon as it arrives in my mailbox, you ought to, too. You can subscribe to it by going to Axios.com and hitting Axios AM. Mike, your reaction to the tone of Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Did we lose Mike? Are you on mute, Mike? I think Mike is on mute. There you are. Hey, Mike, what do you think? Nope. We'll go back and try and get him again. In the meantime, I need to tell you that CBS News has done a bad thing. I'm getting a lot of slapback, guys. CBS News had a story on Mike Pompeo last night, and they cherry-picked it. Here is Scott Pelley on 60 Minutes last night, cut number 14.
As the U.S. led the world in illness and death, the White House moved the focus to the Chinese government.
That's where this began.
Last Sunday, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo attempted to resurrect a debunked theory that the virus was man-made in China.
Okay, so you just heard Scott Pelley say that Mike Pompeo tried to do that. Here is what he actually, and they used an interview with Martha Raddatz. Here's what Mike Pompeo actually said to Martha Raddatz. Cut 15.
Do you believe it was man-made or genetically modified?
Look, the best experts so far seem to think it was man-made. I have no reason to disbelieve that at this point.
Your Office of the DNI says the consensus, the scientific consensus, was not man-made or genetically modified.
That's right. I agree with that. Yeah, I've seen their analysis. I've seen the summary that you saw that was released publicly. I have no reason to doubt that that is accurate at this point.
Okay, so just to be clear, you do not think it was man-made or genetically modified?
I've seen what the intelligence community has said. I have no reason to believe that they've got it wrong. Martha, you have to put this in context. Here's what's important, Martha. Here's what's important. The Chinese Communist Party had the opportunity to prevent all of the calamity that has befallen the world. And here we find ourselves today. You and I were talking about we haven't seen each other physically for a long time. That's true of people all across the world.
So he misspoke at the beginning of the quote. So you hear it. He misspoke, and then he corrected himself. Here's Mike Pompeo from the State Department podium about the origin of the virus on April the 6th, cut number 16.
You can't get. We don't have certainty, and there is significant evidence that this came from the laboratory. Those statements can both be true. I've made them both. Administration officials have made them. They're all true. But focus on the most important piece here. The most important piece here is that the American people remain at risk. The American people remain at risk because we do not know. To your point, we don't have certainty about whether it began in the lab or whether it began someplace else. There's an easy way to find out the answer to that. Transparency, openness, the kinds of things that nations do when they really want to be part of solving a global pandemic, when they really want to participate in the things that keep human beings safe and get economies going back again.
And again, so go back to 60 Minutes last night, cut 14.
As the U.S. led the world in illness and death, the White House moved the focus to the Chinese government.
That's where this began.
Last Sunday, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo attempted to resurrect a debunked theory that the virus was man-made in China.
That's simply not true. That is simply a lie. He misspoke on Martha Raddatz. He has always been careful to say it came out of a lab. We don't know why. We've not been allowed to go into the lab. I've never heard him say it's man-made. He's been on this show. It's just a lie. Meanwhile, they do not know that the United States leads the world in virus and deaths because China won't let us in. Iran won't let anybody in. What is wrong with American media? Why can't, honestly, I think that 95% of Manhattan Beltway media elites, the suits, the people who run these networks, hate Donald Trump. And they are empowering producers who 75% of whom hate Donald Trump to run wild. There are some great news people out there. John Reese, the executive producer of NBC's Meet the Press, he is not unbalanced. He does not have TDS. I love working with John for that reason. I will tell you, though, I think CNN is overridden. I think they have got a virus as bad as COVID. I think their TDS is infecting every corner of their network. Every talking head, every single person. There are a handful, I shouldn't say every, there are a handful of CNN people who have held out. But it is crazy how nuts the American media has become. Just absolutely crazy. I want to go back to Boris Johnson. I guess Mike's cell phone just died, and we cannot, that happens. Mike Allen is Mike Allen. You always get used to that. Boris Johnson wrapped up his United Kingdom address earlier today with these words, cut number 7.
And to prevent reinfection from abroad, I'm serving notice that it will soon be the time, with transmission significantly lower, to impose quarantine on people coming into this country by air. And it's because of your efforts to get the R down and the number of infections down here that this measure will now be effective. And of course, we will be monitoring our progress locally, regionally, and nationally. And if there are outbreaks, if there are problems, we will not hesitate to put on the brakes. We've been through the initial peak, but it's coming down the mountain that is often more dangerous. We have a route and we have a plan. And everyone in government has the all-consuming pressure and challenge to save lives, restore livelihoods, and gradually restore the freedoms that we need. But in the end, this is a plan that everyone must make work. And when I look at what you've done already, the patience and common sense you've shown, the fortitude of the elderly, whose isolation we all want to end as fast as we can, the incredible bravery and hard work of our NHS staff, our care workers, the devotion and self-sacrifice of all those in every walk of life who are helping us to beat this disease: police, bus drivers, train drivers, pharmacists, supermarket workers, road hauliers, bin collectors, cleaners, security guards, postal workers, our teachers, and 1,000 more. The scientists who are working round the clock to find a vaccine. When I think of the millions of everyday acts of kindness and thoughtfulness that are being performed across this country, and that have helped to get us through this first phase, I know that we can use this plan to get us through the next. And if
Johnson
we can't do
doing
it,
exactly what is needed, an encouragement, an admonition, an injunction to continue doing the best, be the best. And kindness is part of that. I want to thank and then encourage everyone in this audience. I began my annual Angel Tree Drive last week. Every May, I ask people to please pony up $200 to send a kid to camp. Some of the Angel Tree camps are going to be open, most of them not. We will send as many kids to camp as we can. It's still going to cost $200, but we're not going to forget the kids that can't go. They have a mom or dad in jail. They've already got a tough road ahead of them. We are not going to forget them. This audience is helping me not forget them. 100 of you have already stepped up and said, I'll sponsor a kid. Fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I are in for 5. We would love for you to sponsor a kid. Now, what's that mean? That means if they can, we'll send them to camp. If they can't, we will send them a box of blessings. That Angel Tree Care Package will include, of course, an age-appropriate Bible, $150 in food coupons, good nutritious food, and sports equipment, the kind of stuff kids need if they're going to spend the summer kicking the ball around in the street, as generations and generations of American children have done. They got to get the ball. If they're going to shoot hoops all summer, they got to get the ball. So if you want to join, go to HughHewitt.com or phone in your gift at 888-206-2764. 888-206-2764. You can give $100,000 if you'd like. You can give 10. But it costs $200 to send a kid to camp or to get a box of blessings to a kid. Dawn Shapley is the director of the Next Step Center at Valley Creek Church in North Texas. She and her volunteers deliver food and other essentials to at-risk children, including the children of people who are in prison. She reminds us how we are blessed when we help others.
Personalize that. The little bit that you give, if we all give something, we are better together. If every single one right now, even if you are impacted in some stretch, the more that you give, the more you receive. I always say you can't outgive God. So you give without knowing where it's going to go. Just pay it forward and see the results, see the blessings that God will bring back into your life.
So now it's your turn. Please join us. Your $200 donation will deliver an Angel Tree Care Package to a child who is just going to have a miserable summer, stuck indoor. They will be able to go out in the street and play with other kids probably. A handful of them, some of them, maybe a few hundred of them will go to camp, but we need to raise money for those if the camp opens up. Either way, go to the Angel Tree banner at HughHewitt.com or call toll-free, 888-206-2764. Okay, time for ReliefFactor.com. Let me find it. I'm going to brag a little bit here. Saturday was just a beautiful, beautiful cold morning in Virginia. I did 12 miles. I went to a neighborhood I'd never been before in Northern Virginia. I found a high school that's actually their nickname of the Wolverines, which made me pause. Obviously, on the wrong trail. When you end up at a name for that state up north, yeah, there's a high school in Virginia, the Wolverines. Can you believe it? And so I was in this neighborhood, go Wolverines, go Wolverines. I thought, what, is this where we keep all the University of Michigan people? And no, there's a high school with the nickname Wolverine, but that can't be helped. But I took my Relief Factor before I left. And I was able to do 12 miles on Saturday and 10 on Sunday. 22 miles. Now, this was just walking fast because I was doing work when I walked. You know, I'm talking to people in the administration, talking about the Flynn case, talking to former Justice Department officials. It is a great embarrassment. And the Department of Justice did the right thing. And, of course, you've got President Obama, James Comey, and Andrew McCabe squealing that this is, the terrible rule of law. They're just trying to divert attention from the attempt they did to damage forever the peaceful transition of power. It's the biggest scandal in the history of the Department of Justice. The biggest scandal in the history of the Department of Justice. So I had a lot to think about when I walked, but I had ReliefFactor.com to walk with me, and you should too. $19.95 gets you started. Go to ReliefFactor.com. Get started today. Come back for Salena Zito next on The Hugh Hewitt Show. 51 minutes after the hour, America. Salena Zito is not a big Bee Gees fan, but our friend Captain Mark Vandroff spends all weekend practicing. That's how he gets his aerobics in on his. He and Lilacs are disco people. And Salena, I don't hold that against people. I assume there were discos in Pittsburgh in the late 70s, right?
Oh, there was. There was one called 2001. It was a really big deal, and people would line up outside of it for hours to get in to dance.
If you have a Jeopardy game that has all disco categories, Mark Vandroff will win. He just will win. So, Salena, you wrote a great column about, I had never heard of anyone striking out all 27 batters. I really have never heard of that before. How long has that story floated around Pittsburgh?
Well, actually, a lot of people have not heard about that. The reason I found out about it is when I was down in Bristol, Tennessee, or Virginia, 2 weeks ago, and I went, of course, past the single-A baseball stadium because, baseball. And I realized it was the Pittsburgh Pirates Appalachian farm team. And then there's this big monument to Ron Netchie for striking out 27 batters on May 13th, 1952. And so, of course, I had to go find Ron Netchie when I got home.
Where does he live?
He lives 8 miles from the tiny little coal town that he grew up in. It was called Gallatin. He now lives in Mount Vernon. This is all called the Mon Valley because it overlooks the Monongahela River. And these were all little industrial towns that were either steel or coal or iron or coke or all of those things that went into making all the things that built this country.
How old is he now, Salena?
He is 87 years old.
Okay, and so when you wrote this, how's the reaction been? Because it was a bit of baseball for the baseball starved, and I tweeted out yesterday, and people love the story. I mean, I've never heard of 27. And then he blew his arm out. It's so sad when he goes to Johns Hopkins and they say, "Son, by a gas station, you're never going to pitch again."
Yeah, it really was sad. But first of all, you would never think he was 87 years old. He is still 6'5", was tossing the ball to me out in his backyard. But he was only 22, and he said, you think when you're 22, my arm will heal, I'll be fine. But because you think you're invincible. But instead of going home and buying a gas station, he went and started a sporting goods company, and he did that until he retired in 2000.
And so, Salena, when you called him up, did we lose Salena? It's like a curse. What did Dwayne do? Dwayne has cursed. He dropped Mike Allen. He dropped Salena Zito. Is Dwayne mad today? Did his scooter not work this weekend? She's back. Salena, what was the reaction to that column generally?
Oh, it's been overwhelming. People have loved it. I've got emails from people saying, "Hey, I don't even like baseball," and that story really moved me because it's a story about life. It's a lesson about life.
Gone again, Dwayne. What are you doing? What is Dwayne doing? I don't understand this. This is a terrible thing. He must not like baseball. Dwayne has never liked baseball much. And Salena, are you back? Salena? You see, Dwayne doesn't like baseball. Dwayne has never struck out 2.7 batters. And so he gets upset when he can't. He hears about, I've never struck out 27 either. Just in all candor, I have never struck out 27 batters in one game. Never. Not in my past. I'm never going to tell you anything but the truth. I have never struck out 27 batters. But Dwayne has never struck out 2.7 batters. And Salena, are you back?
I'm here.
Well, I don't know why Dwayne is mad at you this morning. It's because he's never struck out 2.7 batters, much less 27. And so we got 1 minute left. Just tell us again about the reaction to that column.
The reaction has been overwhelming. People love it. And I think the important lesson is towards the end, where he says, I come from a little town from Gallatin, and you never know if you drove through it because you're already past it. But we did okay coming from here. And I think the point is no matter what you go on to do, as long as you earn your way up, that is the wonderful part of American exceptionalism. And that's what baseball did for him, but that's what anything can do for anyone as long as they earn their way up.
I also love the fact that when Julie Andrews once gave a commencement that I heard, she lost her ability to sing like this guy lost his ability to pitch. And she told the graduates, it's a lock solid guarantee you'll get knocked on your butt. The question is whether you get up. And so when this guy pitches 20, strikes out 27, and I want to repeat, I've never struck out 27. When he does that and then he tears his rotator cuff and he says you'll never pitch again, he goes on and lives a great life. As Salena Zito tells the story, go find the column. I will tweet it out again. Follow Salena Zito for the best in American writing. Just on Twitter at Salena Zito. The best in American reporting and writing. I'll be right back, America. Stay tuned.
as the U.S. world in illness.
Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. It's Hugh Hewitt. Thanks for joining me on this May 11th, 2020, in the year of the plague. We have 80,000 dead Americans. That was up 941 over Saturday. 1.36 million cases, 4 million worldwide, but we don't really know the numbers because the People's Republic of China lied to us. And there are 283,000 dead that we know, but again, we don't know the numbers because the Chinese Communist Party lies to us. I'm joined by Washington Post columnist Josh Rogin. You can follow him on Twitter at Josh Rogin. Good morning, Josh. How are you?
Good morning. Great to be with you.
Now, the CCP lies to us, but the Chinese on Taiwan do not. I want to make that clear. I've had their Foreign Minister Wu on the program. He's very forthright. You wrote about Taiwan in your most recent column. What's the key takeaway for people to know about Taiwan?
Well, for the last 45 years or so, we've ignored our friends in Taiwan out of this mistaken theory that we had to in order to get the Chinese Communist Party to just cooperate with us and play nice against the Jeffersonian democracy that we wanted it to be. And now it should be obvious, given everything we've seen over the last 45 years, but also what we've seen during this pandemic, that actually these are the guys who are doing the right thing and are using democracy and open markets, freedom of information to teach us how to deal with not only China, but also the pandemic. So maybe we should take a moment and think about our relationship with them and stop disrespecting them. That's the basic argument that I made.
It's a very well put argument. I also had Jimmy Lai on last week, Chinese billionaire out of Hong Kong who's an advocate for free speech. And it seems to me that our two friends among the Chinese people, Taiwan and Hong Kong people, are both saying the same thing, which is don't fall for the CCP. That it's not what you thought it was. And, of course, I run the Nixon Foundation, and we're very proud of what the president did 50 years ago, opened the door to a basically bankrupt and backward China that had suffered a century of humiliation. And now they're a superpower, and that's forgiven. But Nixon wondered before he died whether or not a Frankenstein's monster had been created. What do you think, Josh?
I think it just proves that this trope that, China and democracy can't mix just nonsense. And here's two great examples of where it actually not only does a better job of serving the people in Asia, but also serving us, because our public health, our security, our freedoms, they're all connected. So, it's fine to have a Communist Party of China that runs a country as insofar as it goes. But once that system starts making us sick and now we're stuck inside of our houses and can't see grandma because of what they're doing, well, all of a sudden we have to sort of rethink it. And that's kind of what's going on, not only in our government, but also in Congress and in society at large.
Now, you're too young to remember this because I'm too young to remember this. But in 1964, Nikita Khrushchev woke up one day and he was no longer general secretary. He had succeeded Stalin in 1958. He had consolidated power, and he was the boss in the Soviet Union until 1964. And then he screwed up the Cuban Missile Crisis. And a year later, the shoe dropped and the Politburo removed him. Is Xi Jinping looking at a Khrushchev moment, Josh Rogin?
I don't see any signs of that. I think all the evidence points to that Xi Jinping has enormous amounts of power and that he has done very well in purging his rivals and his enemies. Those purges continue today. And, we shouldn't fool ourselves into thinking that the Chinese Communist Party as it exists is going to collapse anytime soon. It's just a reality that we have to deal with. And the question is really, how do we deal with them? And that has a lot to do with our bilateral relations, but it has even more to do with our relations with all the countries in the world that are also dealing with Xi Jinping's Chinese Communist Party, because they're also stuck in their homes and can't see their grandmas, and they know why too. So, this might be a moment for us to coalesce with our friends and allies, the Taiwanese, the people fighting for freedom in Hong Kong, the Europeans, the Africans, everyone who has now come to the realization that, okay, listen, the Chinese Communist Party has a right to rule its country, but they don't have the right to do that in a way that makes us sick or less safe or stops us from having the freedom and prosperity that we have deserved and enjoyed.
I don't think it's going to collapse. Don't get me wrong. Khrushchev was removed in '64, and the Soviet Union didn't collapse for another quarter century. So just when you change leaders in a communist regime doesn't mean it's going to collapse. But they do change leaders when those leaders create massive problems for the country. And I think the blowback against the CCP is enormous, Josh Rogin. I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, but it's just not clear that it's enormous inside China, and it's not clear that Xi Jinping's action is actually losing any ground. Actually, it seems that the opposite is happening. It does raise an interesting question, which is that if you were going to play inside their politics, just like they play inside our politics, how would you do that? How would that go, right? Who are the reformers? Who are the people that you could even bet on or try to engage with to try to tip that system over into a better future? I don't think we're doing any of that work. I think a lot of the trade negotiations focus on the wrong people in the Chinese system to focus on. I don't think we're standing up for the people who could present a real challenge to Xi Jinping. So any way you look at it, he's there to stay. He's the king. He's the dictator for the rest of his life as long as that goes. So I just think we need to just deal with that. And the way that we deal with that is by, again, not trying to change China, but trying to change ourselves, bolster our own system, strengthen our own system, and join with people who agree with us to try to push back against their worst behaviors and punish them for their worst abuses.
No, I do note one interesting indication that the United States has embarked on a new policy is that in the Wall Street Journal this morning, there is a leak, U.S. to accuse China of attempts to hack coronavirus research. Okay, so this posted at 4:55 this morning, and Trump administration officials are telling everyone that the PRC, the CCP, is trying to pilfer our coronavirus vaccine research. Now, the reason they would want to do that is so that they could claim, a propaganda victory. Meanwhile, Wuhan has got the coronavirus back. Don't you see in that leak, perhaps, your phone might be ringing, Josh, later in the day with various people telling you various things about the PRC, because two can play this game. And they have been playing a very ugly propaganda game inside of China.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to understand, and people are now waking up to the fact that a lot of the Chinese economy is based on gross theft of American and European and lots of other intellectual property. The vaccine thing is not just about bragging rights. It's about money. Remember when
you're right.
we first brought remdesivir over to China for clinical trials, a Chinese company copied it and tried to patent it like 3 weeks later, okay? So this is big business. This is also he who controls the vaccine controls the future course of the pandemic and the post pandemic economic recovery. So this is how they operate. Again, this is not unique to China. They just do it the most egregiously and the most wantonly, and that's why we have to also to deal with it. And okay, so how do we deal with Chinese cyber hacking? Well, if you look at it, maybe we should start sanctioning Chinese companies. Wouldn't it interest your listeners to know that although we've done hundreds of prosecutions, we've done almost zero sanctions, basically 2 sanctions on Chinese companies that actually cyber hack us. Why is that? Why is our Treasury Department not sanctioning all these Chinese companies that are robbing us blind? That's a question that you should ask Secretary Mnuchin next time you have him on.
Well, he's never been on. I think there is a battle inside the administration between the China hawks and the globalists. And by globalists, I don't mean Bilderbergers. I mean people who, like Goldman Sachs, have a lot of money tied up in Beijing. And I believe that those two... Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And that's exactly what's happening. And the fact is that we've not used most of our strongest tools against Chinese economic and aggression and interference. For that very reason is because there are some people who are still set on this idea of engagement, and those people are in the Treasury Department and other parts of our government, and they're holding on to this trade deal, which is really not actually working out in the first place and doesn't even really serve our interest in the second place. And that tension has never been resolved, and President Trump has never made a decision between those two sides of our government. So until we do, the abuses are going to continue, and that's something that.
Josh, I'd like your opinion on this. I think one of the defining election issues in the fall will be the China hawk policy that is emerging out of Team Trump versus going back to the Obama-Biden appeasement days, which, by the way, go back to the W appeasement days, which, by the way, go back to the Clinton appeasement days, which, by the way, go back to the Bush 41 appeasement days, which go back to the we've been appeasing China since Nixon went there in 1974. We just have. And I think this administration is the first to break with that. What's your thought on that, Josh Rogin, for the fall?
I think this will be one of the hottest issues in the November election. I think it's fascinating, and I wrote about this last week, that the Democrats don't have a position on China. They can't make up their minds. When the Republicans tried to start a bipartisan task force just to coordinate on China, just to discuss it, just to bring together different committees of jurisdiction, the Democrats backed out at the last minute. This was even before coronavirus. They just couldn't decide if they wanted to be a part of it or not. They simply are torn between their desire to attack Trump and their desire to, come up with a sensible China position that's defensible in the polls. The American people know it. Read the Pew poll. If you read the Harris poll, it's very clear. Democrats want a tougher China policy.
Josh, you're being kind. The Democratic Party is the party of appeasement, both with Iran and China. It's just that simple, and people have to choose if they want to go back to appeasement. I mean, it works for some global financial interest. It does not work for the American people. Josh Rogin on Twitter at The Washington Post. I'm coming right back, America. Stay tuned. Captain Mark, this is for you. You can follow Mark Vandroff on Twitter at Goatmaster. Proud Annapolis grad, great shipbuilder, still a patriot, but this affection for the Bee Gees and disco is beyond me. I don't understand something. Welcome back. I'm Hugh Hewitt on a Monday, May 11th, in the year of the virus 2020. I was very encouraged last week by two things. Number one, I told you about Giving Mask /Hugh, and all of you went and bought your masks from them. Thank you. Every carton of masks, and you're going to have to get masks. You're going to have to. We're all going to be wearing them for the summer. When we go shopping, when we go out, when we go to a restaurant, we're all going to be wearing masks. And we'll get used to it. It's going to be a while till we get a vaccine or a therapeutic, and that's okay. I'm getting my Cleveland Browns and Cleveland Indians masks, but some of you just want the plain old paper mask. Go to Giving Masks /Hugh, givingmasks.com/Hugh. Because every box of masks you buy from givingmasks.com/Hugh, they send a box to Children's Hospital of Orange County, CHOC. Because I got to pick one. I got to pick a hospital, I picked CHOC. So you buy your masks from givingmasks.com, and they're a lot cheaper than the Cleveland Indians and Cleveland Browns masks. But I want to wear the Indians and the Browns, but they're expensive. Giving Masks, quality masks, surgical masks, what you need to wear, and you can get them. They're European certified FFP2 respirator surgical masks. Third-party team auditing the factory quality. It's none of this crap that's coming out of the PRC that doesn't work and doesn't protect people that are coming towards you. Masks are worn to protect not you, but people coming towards you. In the event you cough, sneeze, or exhale virus and you're asymptomatic, you have no idea if you've got the virus. That's where givingmasks.com/Hugh comes in. Where does No Safe Spaces come in? Well, everybody knows that the free speech and death of comedy video, Not Allowed to Laugh, is coming to Facebook on Wednesday, May 13th. Not Allowed to Laugh, Free Speech and the Death of Comedy. It's being hosted by the very funny Eric McTaxis. It's going to feature Dennis Prager and Adam Carolla. I don't know how Eric and Adam are going to get a word in. Honestly, I don't. They should just say we give up and let Dennis talk. But it's going to be on Wednesday, May the 13th. That's 2 days from now for you Steelers fans. Today is the 11th. The 13th is 2 days from now. 7 p.m. Eastern. All right, 7 p.m. Eastern. That means in Pittsburgh it's at 7 p.m. Now let me explain for the people who are Golden State Warriors fans, that's 4 p.m. in California. The Steelers fans who move west become Golden State Warriors fans. And they both are a little slow on the uptake. So it's 7 p.m. in the east, 4 p.m. in the west on Wednesday. Not Allowed to Laugh, Free Speech and the Death of Comedy. Go to nosafespaces.com. And by the way, you get 25% off if you do save 25. That's the code. The event, by the way, will be a safe space for laughing out loud if Eric gets a chance to talk. I also want to thank everyone who's given to Angel Tree. Your donation of just $200 will bless an at-risk boy or girl with an Angel Tree. Either we will send them to camp if and when they open, or we will send them a box of blessings, $150 in grocery gift cards, sports equipment, soccer balls, hoops, whatever they like to play, age-appropriate Bible, some study aids, a note of encouragement from mom or dad. Your generosity is so critical. $200 is one child. $200, and we really appreciate what you do for them. We really, really appreciate what you do for them. Let me go and tell you as well what CBS did to Mike Pompeo. This is what they played. Cut 14. It's an outtake. They played an outtake. Cut 14.
As the U.S. led the world in illness and death, the White House moved the focus to the Chinese government.
That's where this began.
Last Sunday, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo attempted to resurrect a debunked theory that the virus was man-made in China.
I can't even begin to tell you how many lies are in that. Number one, we do not know if the United States leads the world in death because we're not allowed in China, Scott Pelley. Wake up. Number two, he did not resurrect a debunked theory. He told Martha Raddatz, we don't know. We know that it came out of a lab. We don't know that it was man-made. And number three, you don't know anything, nor can you speak with authority about anything because it's the communists. What is wrong with American media? They hate Trump so much that they'll destroy America and the ideas behind it in order to get Trump. It's just crazy. Stay tuned. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
As the U.S. led the world in illness and death, the White House moved the focus to the Chinese government.
That's where this began.
Last Sunday, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo attempted to resurrect a debunked theory that the virus was man-made in China.
Welcome back, America. That was Scott Pelley last night on 60 Minutes. I am joined now by Representative Liz Cheney. She is chairman of the House Republican Conference, the third-ranking Republican in the House of Representatives. Good morning, Representative Cheney. Everybody well and doing good in the Cheney team?
Good morning, Hugh. So far, thank goodness everyone is. Just very tough times for folks around the country, but thank you for everything you're doing.
Well, I want to begin with that.
There.
I want to clip by Scott Pelley last night has three distortions, if not outright lies in it. First of all, we don't know that America leads the world in death because the Chinese communists lie to us. Number two, the Secretary of State did not resurrect a debunked theory. He misspoke and they clipped it, not using his entire point. And third, we don't actually know anything about this virus because the Chinese won't let us into the lab. Why in the world is American media taking the side of the CCP in this?
It is a really troubling question and a really good point, Hugh. And I think there are several reasons for it. I think first of all, they're clearly liberal. I think they clearly do not want to see the administration succeed. As we saw during impeachment, they hate President Trump more than they're willing to come together and work together to defeat this virus. And so I also think that we do have to question the extent to which the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese government have been very successful, very effective at providing funding, resources, infiltrating Hollywood, infiltrating media, infiltrating our entertainment companies. And I think that people have always got to question the extent to which there's influence coming from the Chinese Communist Party in this regard. But you summed it up exactly right in terms of just a complete untruth that you heard there from Scott Pelley and CBS.
No, I don't believe we have an Alger Hiss running around, but I do believe we've got an awful lot of American interests tied up with the economy of the PRC and therefore deeply worried about offending the CCP. I mean, LeBron James is the biggest example of that, right? He knows his personal wealth depends upon the CCP not banning LeBron as a trademark in China. How do we go about untangling this, disengaging from this?
Well, I think that what we've seen with the devastation caused by COVID, this pandemic, which they caused to be spread around the world by lying about it and failing to alert the world. What we've seen is people now have to face the real consequences, the real cost of those relationships with China. And so whereas the, sort of economic pain that people would mention and be concerned about previously when these discussions about separating supply chains, moving supply chains, decreasing our dependence. Whenever those discussions came up in the past, you would see a real focus on the importance of the Chinese markets and the importance of being able to, have supply chains that originated there in many cases. I think now, because people see the death and destruction of this pandemic and of, what's been unleashed because of the totalitarian regime in China, that whole cost calculation changes. And I think people will have to face reality here, which is that the world has got to come together. We're already beginning to see it in terms of some of our allies beginning to incentivize their companies to move their supply chains. But we've got to understand fundamentally going forward here, China's role in the world is going to have to completely change because you cannot be part of the civilized community of nations if you behave in the way that the Chinese Communist Party has and you cause the deaths of so many people around the world. And now we're seeing that 80,000 Americans to date.
Liz Cheney, do we need people like Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, his players? Do we need Disney with Shanghai Disney? Do we need them to step up and step out and say, this far and no farther, we are not going to be captive to the Chinese market?
I think we do, and I think we do for a couple of reasons, Hugh. One is we need to think about, what does the Chinese Communist Party need? What they need is, rapid economic growth. They need the people in China to believe that their military is unsurpassed, is, beginning to overtake America's military. They need their people to believe that they're respected in international organizations. And so we need to be able to work with our allies, work with our industry, obviously make sure that we're maintaining the kind of defense posture that we need to demonstrate to the world and to the people of China that that's not the case. You are not a respected member of the community of nations. You're not respected on the world stage. We understand the role you're playing in international organizations. That those kinds of activities and behavior are not ones that the world together is going to allow.
Now, Representative Cheney, I want to switch to the Michael Flynn story. And I preface this by saying you've been around transitions. You were there when Bush Cheney took over from Clinton Gore, and you were there when Bush Cheney handed the reins of power over to Obama Biden. And the goal of every transition is that it be peaceful, seamless, and cooperative. It's the glory of America, actually. This transition appears to have been different, the most recent one. It appears as though rogue elements in the FBI, along with senior aides to President Obama, did everything they could to destroy Michael Flynn, who did some bad things, I think. I'm not sure. I have to ask the vice president if he still feels the same way, if he still feels that General Flynn misled him. But the more I read about this, the more it looks like a setup and a mug's game, and that Mr. Comey, Mr. McCabe, and unnamed Obama aides, and maybe President Obama himself were deeply involved in a very unsettling, first of its kind attempt to sabotage a transition. What is your assessment?
Yeah, I think you're right, Hugh. I think it is deeply, deeply troubling. First of all, let me just say, Jim Comey is one of the single worst actors in American politics and government in decades. The extent to which he absolutely showed no respect for, in many cases, the rule of law, the Constitution, bragged about it publicly. He was a bad actor during the Bush administration. He's been a bad actor now, and he's somebody that clearly, Office of Professional Responsibility at the Department of Justice had better be very actively investigating the role that he's played. I think that what we saw, it seems, was a situation in which there was a vendetta against General Flynn. We know that the Obama administration removed him, and that they seem to have gone after him, trying to criminalize the actions that he was taking during the transition. The fact that the case has now been dropped shows real vindication. But I think that it's really important for the American people to have confidence and faith in the Department of Justice, in the FBI, in the law enforcement entities in our government. And what we know now is under President Obama, Attorney General Holder, certainly Jim Comey, that they were operating in a way that seems to have been outside the bounds of the rule of law. And I think that's really grave and serious, and there ought to be pretty significant consequences for that.
I would ask anyone in the audience who thinks highly of any of the people we've just named to go read Sally Yates's interview with the Office of Special Counsel, attached as Exhibit 4 to the motion dismissed filed by the Department of Justice last week. The acting attorney general is flabbergasted by what Jim Comey did. I don't know if you've yet read that, Liz Cheney. She's absolutely dumbfounded by what he did. Yeah. And he's just a rogue actor, as was McCabe, and apparently Obama aides, unnamed Obama aides.
Yeah, well, what we saw with their demand for unmasking for political purposes, what we saw with the extent to which she appears to have found out about what was going on from President Obama in the Oval Office.
Yes,
I mean, it is and then the footage of Comey admitting, on video that he completely flouted all of the norms of what you would do if you actually needed to go interview somebody in the administration. He just took advantage of a situation to go and trap General Flynn. He's admitting it. So it's really, a sad day well, it's a great day that General Flynn has been vindicated, and hopefully the charges will be dropped here formally. But I think that it is a very sad day, and was a sad number of years that they were able to operate the way they did.
Now, Liz Cheney, I've said for a long time that the election in November is going to come down to 4. Now I've changed it to 5 issues. China, because I think the Democrats are appeasers. Defense, because I don't think the Democrats believe in funding it. Judges, because they believe in whack jobs instead of originalists. The key to rebounding the economy is deregulation. They don't believe that. Those are the 4 bigs. But I'm going to add, I think the American people are going to want a thorough prosecution of everyone involved in this scandal because it protects the essence of democracy. What do you make of my 5 issues?
Yeah, no, I think those are the right ones, Hugh. I think because of the pandemic, I think that the role of China is clearly going to play. I think it's going to play a bigger role in the election. People will, I think, look really negatively at Vice President Biden and at the Democrats, the extent to which they'd rather, frankly, blame President Trump, blame the administration, than look at what really happened here. You know, the people to blame for what we're all living through and this devastation is the Chinese Communist Party, and I think they will need to be held accountable.
Is the word appeasers too strong?
No, I don't think so. I think that, just look at what's happened in Congress. We've tried for months to get the Democrats to agree to a bipartisan task force focused on the whole array of steps we need to take with respect to China. They agreed, and then, sort of moments before the announcement last February, they backed off. Now, Leader McCarthy has named a number of us to this task force, and we welcome the Democrats to join us. We hope and we wish they would. It'd be much better for the country to have a bipartisan focus and effort on this, but we're going to go ahead and make sure that we've laid out what needs to be done with respect to China. And frankly, it's pretty hard to understand why the Democrats won't participate in that.
Well, I think it's tied in with their Iranian policy, Representative Cheney. Everywhere I look, they are just repeating the Stanley Baldwin, Neville Chamberlain policies of the 30 vis-a-vis Iran and China. They don't want to confront problems.
Yeah, and they just haven't learned the lessons of history, which is that you're never going to be able to defend yourself or to convince your adversaries that they ought to behave appropriately if you make yourself weaker. And I think that we'll see what happens. I'm concerned, as I know you are, Hugh, about the defense budget, the downward pressure on the defense budget. We've had to spend a significant amount of money to provide relief from the economic impact of the virus, which is the right thing to do. I don't agree with all of it. I think the Democrats have put wasteful spending in there. But I think it's really important that we not, take that money out of the Defense Department or somehow lessen our commitment to making sure that we're maintaining a military that is second to none so we can deter any adversary around the world that would wish us harm.
Absolutely. If there's a phase 4, I hope a lot of it goes to the Department of Defense to forward fund the appropriations necessary to rebuild the triad and get our fleet up to speed. Representative Liz Cheney, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for being with us. I'll be right back, America. I did not forget Relief Factor. I'm just going to do it on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. Would you tell Ben I just sent him? Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. I did not tell you about Relief Factor when I left the last break. I always try and do it at the same time to remind commuters. People are still going to work. Lots of Americans are driving back and forth to work. Their commutes are faster, but they still might be long. If you're leaving Moreno Valley right now, it's just about 5 a.m. in California, and you got that. It used to be a 2-hour drive. Now you got a 1-hour drive, so you get to leave at 5 instead of 4. Don't forget to take your ReliefFactor.com. Support for the temporary relief of the minor aches and pains with all natural supplements like carrying curcumin, resveratrol, and omega. Take it every day. I go out and I do my trundle. I'm walking today. I've gotten into walking because you can't talk to people when you're huffing and puffing, but I can get a lot of work done talking to people through my mask. I wear a scarf, actually. And when people's coming at me, I lower it. And I've now found a place where I can go where the doggone bicyclists and scooter people are not bothering me. But the Relief Factor, I've had 250-mile weeks in a row. I haven't done that since destroying my disc in 2006 in the LA Marathon, stepping in a pothole. I haven't done that in, how many years is that? 15 years, 14 years? I credit ReliefFactor.com and the quarantine. And the fetching Mrs. Hewitt. Get up and go, get up and go. Got to play for you. ReliefFactor.com, by the way, $19.95 for the starter pack. Got to play for you. Trey Gowdy on Fox News yesterday. Adam Schiff has been exposed as a complete fraud. I mean, the guy's a serial liar. And he lied throughout the Russia hoax. And he leaked everything throughout the Russia hoax. But who was his stenographer? Trey Gowdy got asked, who was the stenographer? Maria Bartiromo, who is rapidly becoming the equal of anyone on Sunday morning. I would not be surprised if she is the one to finally take down Meet the Press. Maria Bartiromo yesterday had on Trey Gowdy. Listen to this, cut number 11.
I hope you have a 3-hour show. I mean, let's just start with Politico and anyone not named Rachel Bade. She was the only reporter that I dealt with that was fair. Kyle Cheney is just an acolyte for Adam Schiff. Manu Raju from CNN, nothing Schiff wanted out made public. No leak was too low for Manu Raju and CNN.
Trey Gowdy just unloading on members of the press who carried water for Adam Schiff. Devin Nunes appeared also, Marie Bartiromo, talking about the fact that Michael Flynn's been exonerated, but there's still weird stuff going on. Cut number 10.
Well, the 302 is still missing, Maria. So here's what we know. This report, when it was taken down, after that report was transcribed, we had people at the highest level, the FBI, come and brief us. Plus, we have other sources that also gave us the same information that the FBI agents essentially said, look, there's nothing to see here. Flynn wasn't lying. And that's what we were told on the record. So we knew this at the beginning of 2017. So you can imagine my astonishment when it began to leak out in the press that General Flynn was being busted for lying to the FBI, and that's what the Mueller team, the dirty Mueller team, that's what they were going to bust him on. And I told people at the highest levels of the FBI and the DOJ, I said, what are you doing here? Like, we have on the record from the highest level people that he didn't lie to the FBI. So, I don't care if that's what you're using, if you're going to drop the charges on Flynn's son or whatever conspiracy theory they were peddling against General Flynn, they had no possible way to bust him or indict him for lying to the FBI, because then that means that the FBI had lied to us. Okay. Now, so what happened? What happened is that report.
I want to just focus you. The Flynn stuff is very difficult to get into because he did some wrong things. He did not apparently register as he ought to have under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. There's a minor violation there. If there's a violation, all the Logan Act stuff is nonsense, and people laugh at that. Sally Yates was cut out. Comey, McCabe, and aides to President Obama cut out the Department of Justice. There's a role of the president here we do not know. There's this weird memo from Susan Rice to herself on the day of the inauguration. It stinks. Here's what they did, though. They threatened the American tradition of the peaceful, seamless, cooperative transition of power. They targeted Mike Flynn. They took him out. He cooperated. They handed him a sword. He was not sophisticated in the ways of the Bureau. He could not have imagined that Comey was the bad actor that he was, that McCabe was the bad actor. But he's vindicated. No, yes, he did bad things, but he's vindicated. And this is going to be a huge issue because we want Durham. I want Judge Sullivan to speak. Judge Sullivan knows what happens when the Department of Justice goes rogue. He took the bark off of them in the Ted Stevens case, and I hope he does it again. Judge Sullivan, if you're driving to work and you're listening, the country needs you to protect the transition. There will be many, many more transitions in a democratic republic. We can never have again happen what happened in this transition when Team Obama and a rogue FBI attempt to cripple an incoming presidency. That's what this was. It's the scandal of 240 years. Never happened before. The attempt to cripple, and not Adams to Jefferson. Sure, he appointed John Marshall Chief Justice, but that was within the rule of law. All right, it's just never happened before. People take advantage, they get jobs, they do stuff like that, but they have never attempted to undermine an incoming administration the way that Team Obama, Jim Comey, Andy McCabe did. It is absolutely without precedent. It is appalling and disgusting. I think it may be criminal. The Attorney General said we don't know that. He's very careful about the rule of law. Forget Scott Pelley. Forget all the people that distort what he had to say. He's very careful about the rule of law. I'm a rule of law Republican. You should be outraged as too. Read the Sally Yates statement to the special counsel. The mask is off these people. The mask is off. I'll be right back. Hour number 3 coming up. Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Greetings from inside the ReliefFactor.com studio, deep in the Beltway, wandering around after the show through empty streets, staying away from bikers who don't wear masks. I may run into Mike Allen. I don't know what Mike is doing. He's the most social animal inside the Beltway. He's always meeting with people and talking with people. If this falls heavily on anyone, it's going to fall on Mike Allen. Mike, before we get to the serious news, I hope you're healthy from the virus. I think you are, but what are you doing without your normal peripatetic lifestyle?
I was not made to be in a bunker, that is for sure. It's funny, I texted somebody that the other day, but we're very fortunate. Axios is doing great, and for my time into that, I got out of the sequester on Friday, hopped on Air Force Two, and went to Iowa with Vice President Pence, where he met with faith leaders in Urbandale and went to the headquarters of Hy-Vee supermarkets. And I don't know if you have a Hy-Vee supermarkets any place that you live, but they have their HQ in West Des Moines. And we heard from executives there as part of a...
Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I had the vice president on the show on Thursday. And he didn't invite me on Air Force Two. And Mike Pompeo's going to Israel for a big deal. I haven't been invited on Air Force 3. What is going on here? They've got an Axios bent. Are you going with the Secretary of State to Israel this week?
Hugh, I promise I'm going to get you a trip. I'm going to get you on a trip, and you're not even going to have to speak and sing for your supper. You're going to be able to just enjoy it.
I'm just telling you, I'm going to have to call the vice president's office and register a complaint. Now, Mike, let's get to the serious stuff. And this is very serious. I had Liz Cheney on last hour. We were going to post that interview. She takes the bark off of Jim Comey. And it's because of what was revealed over the last 4 days, especially in the Sally Yates transcript of the interview with the special counsel, Exhibit 4 to the Department of Justice filing. She called Jim Comey one of the worst actors in the history of America. I mean, just goes after him because he attempted to undermine the transition. How big is this story going to get? Because I think it's going to be a Macy's parade balloon size big before the end of the month.
And what does that look like? You're talking about somebody being charged, or what is a Macy's balloon to you in this context?
Well, the whole parade will be when Durham returns with his report, which may or may not include indictments. The Attorney General was careful to say he's not prejudging that, and we shouldn't. It will be incontrovertible evidence of the sort that we saw when Judge Sullivan brings down the gavel and says, I can't believe it, you guys attempted to wreck the transition. It's never happened in American history before. And I asked Liz Cheney. She was around with the transition from Clinton Gore to Bush Cheney. She was around for the transition from Bush Cheney to Obama Biden, and they went seamlessly, peacefully, cooperatively. This transition is marked forever in the history books as one of deception and of an attempt to destroy an administration before it took office. I think that's a big story, Mike Allen.
Well, it is. The question is whether it's bigger than a pandemic. And you look at the president's tweets over the weekend, look what's on the president's on his mind. Clearly, this is occupying a lot of mind share for him. He doesn't have a hashtag in front of it, but he clearly wants to get the hashtag Obamagate going. And we saw over the weekend, and then the president's interview with Fox and Friends on Friday, we saw his sort of victory lap on Michael Flynn. And I got to ask Vice President Pence about Michael
interesting.
Flynn when we were on the show. I did an interview for Axios on HBO. It airs tonight at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, Pacific Time, and then it's forever on all HBO platforms around the world. But something I asked Vice President Pence during our interview there in the back of the global headquarters of Hy-Vee supermarkets, I said, would you welcome Michael Flynn back to the administration? And, of course, why it matters, the backstory of that is you've seen President Trump say that he would consider bringing him back in. And one of the reasons, of course, that was given at the time that Michael Flynn was fired as President Trump's first national security advisor was lying to the vice president about his contacts with Russians. And of course, Mike Pence went and repeated what he said on a Sunday show. Very fascinatingly, Mike Pence said to me that he thinks that Michael Flynn is a patriot. He says that he believes that he was a victim of prosecutorial misconduct. He says, for my part, I'd be happy to see Michael Flynn again.
Well, that is actually big news, because one of the things I've been careful to say as I write about this, it is apparent to me that the then National Security Advisor did not level with Vice President Pence and with Reince Priebus. And maybe that was because of memory lapses, maybe because that was the way the question was posed, but that was the reason given for his firing. But that is separate and apart from the fact that he was set up. So when you talk to the vice president, what did he say about the revelations, especially Sally Yates? I just keep going to Exhibit 4, Sally Yates' interview with the special counsel. She's dumbfounded. She's flabbergasted by what Jim Comey did. They went right around the Department of Justice. And everyone out there, you Steelers fans, the FBI works for the Department of Justice. They are subject to the control of the Department of Justice. They may not do what they did here without the Attorney General or the acting Attorney General imprimatur. They ought to, I don't know what they're going to be prosecuted or not, but Mike, did he talk about that when he talked about what happened? Because that is the big story.
And I'm just curious, Hugh, where you think it's going. Like, you see the graphic on Sean Hannity, Deep State Reckoning. And so
it's not a deep state.
Like, what is the reckoning?
It's not a deep state. I like to point out a handful of rogue actors, which I believe includes Comey, McCabe, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, maybe a couple other FBI people, and maybe some Obama aides, and I know about but the IC, but we're not talking more than a dozen people. It's not a deep state. It's a group of rogue people that attempted to undermine a transition for the first time in American history. It's really bad. Where it's going is to John Durham. And John Durham will issue a report, and it might be like the Mueller report and not indict anyone because there's no crime. The Attorney General held open that possibility. Or if it indicts people, that will be a Thor's hammer event. I think it's one of the big 5 issues I talked about with Liz Cheney. China, defense spending, whether we go up with a regulated approach to recovery from COVID or a deregulation approach to COVID, and judges. I think it's one of the 5 big issues. But I noticed number 1 in the Axios AM thing, Mike, that the money is on Trump. I think the reason the money is on Trump is because those 5 issues are all pro-Trump issues, not personalities, are all pro-Trump issues. But would you explain to people what item number 1 in Axios AM is this morning? Because it's a stunner.
Yeah, no, the big money is on Trump, Hugh, and this is from the lead of Axios Markets and from the reporting of of Axios Markets. And you look in the averages of swing state polls, you look at the averages of national polls, which of course you shouldn't, but people do, and you'll see that Joe Biden's way ahead. But wait, look at what money managers are doing. Look at what the expectations on Wall Street are. Look at what the online betting gambling markets are saying. Like, all of them now are expecting a Trump reelection. And it seems to be because they believe that as states reopening, we are going to see recovery. But the I didn't even notice that Real Clear Politics now has an average of betting websites. the Real Clear Politics betting average. Trump has an advantage, a spread of 8.2.
I didn't know they did either, and I read RCP often. But what that is people putting real money up. I think it goes back to the idea that if the economy's headed in the right direction, which I believe it will be in the fall, people aren't going to blame Trump for this depression. They're going to blame the Chinese Communist Party, and they're going to realize free markets and deregulation is the only way to get back to where we were in January. I think that's what, and Joe Biden is not very inspiring. Last word to you, Mike. Markets are often wrong, though. Betting rock. Otherwise, Vegas wouldn't exist, right? If bettors knew what they were doing.
Right. True that. And we saw yesterday both Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, and the President's senior economic advisor, Kevin Hassett, saying they're looking at 20 to 25% unemployment. Where do you think the bottom is? July, August, September? What's your bottom?
My bottom is in June. I do believe that by June we will figure out how to do this, and I believe it's going to involve making very important discriminations based upon age and infirmity. But that doesn't mean shutting everybody in. Mike Allen, follow him on Twitter at Mike Allen. Go get your Axios AM at Axios.com. Come right back, America. 1-800-520-1234. Connection to the Hugh Hewitt Show. This makes Mark Vandroff cry. I don't know why. Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. It's Bee Gees Day. I'm trying to help people through the quarantine, and Captain Mark just loves the Bee Gees, and so he asked me to just play all Bee Gees music today. And he's pretty good at that pretzel thing with Mrs. V. They do that. Disco was when he was young. I think he was in junior high when disco hit. I was just getting out of college, and so I could avoid it. But the junior high kids, they fell hard for Saturday Night Fever. Let me tell you, friends, about the market brought to you by Andrew and Todd.com. Andrew Del Rey, Todd Avakian. Together they are lenders. They lend you money. They lend you money because they can use your home to refinance it and get money out. They can save you money. They can shorten the term. They can do all sorts of magical things. If you're a senior citizen and you just don't think you have enough money for retirement now, but you've got a house with a lot of equity in it, investigate a reverse mortgage and do it with AndrewandTodd.com. Old-fashioned way to call these people, 888-888-1172. If you're watching on Univision right now or on YouTube, 888-888-1172. We put up the little Sierra Pacific logo, but the best thing, in my view, is to go to AndrewandTodd.com. Even if you're a little bit unsure on the computer and you're older and you want to investigate a reverse mortgage, go to AndrewandTodd.com. They do not sell your information like a lot of mortgage lenders do, like a lot of mortgage brokers do. They take care of it. They take care of you. AndrewandTodd.com. And if you're buying a new house, they got realtors across the country. All right, so if you're moving to Old Town Alexandria with Amazon, call up Gordon Wood. He works with AndrewandTodd.com. If you're moving to California, you're one of the people who are actually moving there, call up AndrewandTodd.com. They'll find you a realtor in any of the Southern California, Northern California places that are too hard to find a house without a realtor. AndrewandTodd.com. On Friday, the market had a great day. It was up 455 points. The NASDAQ up 141. The S&P up 48. Overseas last night, Japan was up 1%. Hong Kong up 1.5 because, they're looking over there at Shanghai where Disneyland's opened up again. But you're not selling that story in England and Germany. No. Even though light crude is up this morning and gold is just staying around 1,700, England and Germany are both in the red. I don't know where America's going to go today. I'm not a prophet nor the son of a prophet, but I know that interest rates are the best they've ever been. If you're going to buy a house, if you're going to refinance a house, if you're going to get a reverse mortgage because you want cash and you want to be able to stay in your house for the rest of your life except for the taxes, you got to pay your taxes. Homeowners Association, call 888-888-1172. Let me also remind you, Angel Tree. Every year in May, I raise money to send kids to camp, kids whose mom or dad or both parents are in prison. We have not forgotten those children, though not all the camps will be open. We're either going to send them to camp if you make a $200 donation, or we're going to send them a box of blessings, food, coupons for good food. Going to send them sports equipment, age-appropriate Bible. We do not forget the children who cannot be with their mom or dad in this difficult time because their mom or dad are behind bars. We take care of them, thanks to you. All you have to do is go over to HughHewitt.com and find the Angel Tree banner. It's very close to the top. It's yellow. It's gold. You cannot miss Angel Tree. It's over there. Just go, or you can call 888-206-2764. That's a toll-free number as well. 888-206-2764. Am I getting the phone number right? It says on air, and it's obscuring the number. I want to make sure I get the number right. Is it 888? Gotta ask my friend. Yeah, 888-206-2764. Also want to remind you that if you will go over to HughHewitt.com, you will find my long piece on General Flynn that I posted on Friday. This is an astonishing and deeply dark moment in American history. I want you to read it all. It's at HughHewitt.com. If you follow me at Hugh Hewitt, you'll be able to follow the latest. The president's been retweeting me because I've been pointing at stuff that you got to read, like the Sally Yates interview. She was a hero to the left. She's not going to be a hero to the left after they read that she basically pulls the cover back on Team Obama and what they did, undermining the peaceful transition of power, targeting Mike Flynn. It's astonishing. It's really one of the great scandals of our era. and it's going to get worse this week. And you can read about, follow me on Twitter. All I can do is if you want the latest news, just get on Twitter, create an account, and follow Hugh Hewitt. I'll be right back. serving his country. And speaking of patriots, I'm joined by Mike Garcia. Now, Mike Garcia is not a name you will know outside of California, but you will on Wednesday because he's going to be the next congressman from California's 25th Congressional District, which votes tomorrow in a special election to fill a vacancy. And I'm pleased to welcome Mike Garcia to the program right now. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great, Hugh. Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's do the rundown first on the logistics because we got people who are awake in California and they will watch this on YouTube. The election is tomorrow, but a lot of people have ballots in their hand. What should they do with those ballots if they've got one in their hand?
Yeah, if they still have it in their hand and they haven't mailed it in, the best thing to do is actually to go to a live voting center. And tomorrow's the big day, but there's actually a few voting centers open today as well throughout the district. And you can get all those logistics on my website at electmikegarcia.com.
electmikegarcia.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at Mike Garcia 2020. Tell us how the race stands, because this is a very important seat, and getting a Navy fighter pilot back into Congress would be a very good thing indeed.
Absolutely, I believe so as well, Hugh. So this is the notorious seat that Katie Hill resigned from back in November. So this is to fill the vacancy for the rest of this year. And then I've got to run again in November against the same Democrat opponent for the follow-on term of 2 years. So things are going very well. We've got about 120,000 ballots returned so far through the mail for the last 3 weeks of mail-in vote by mail, and it's looking very favorable to us right now. But as you know, this is California, and we've got to keep our foot on the pedal all the way through the finish line.
And Leader McCarthy has told me they also have to raise money from you. They're not going to stop raising money for you because the Democrats, when you win on Wednesday, they're just going to turn around and try and beat you fair and square or unfair and unsquare come the fall. It's really the same campaign, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, it's a marathon of marathons here. I've been running for over a year already, so we've got to get in office tomorrow and then perform, execute, and keep doing what we're doing as a team. I've got a magnificent team, but we've got obviously the support of not only Leader McCarthy now, but also the president, several dozen members, and what I'm proud of most is the 500-600 volunteers we have here in our district that have been really doing God's work and pulling more weight than anyone, and it's been very humbling to watch. But it's truly a grassroots campaign that's paying off here for us.
Now you got some Steelers fans who live in the 25th. They may not know they have an election tomorrow. Will you tell them where the 25th is so that they have same-day registration? They can go in tomorrow and vote. Correct?
Correct. Yep. You can show up. It's northern L.A. County, so it's Simi Valley, Porter Ranch, the Santa Clarita Valley, and the Antelope Valley up north there with Acton and Agua Dulce as well in the mix. So pretty good size geography there. So make sure that you either are in or just out of it if you can. But as you said, you can show up same-day registration and have your vote counted tomorrow.
This is Buck McKeon's old seat, and he was a great voice for America's defense. That's why I want an Annapolis grad and a fighter pilot, Mike Garcia, to come back and join Gallagher, who's a Marine, and Cotton, who's an Army guy, and we'll get some other Navy people. But tell people a little bit about yourself. You're a fighter pilot. You flew 30 combat missions during Operation Iraqi Freedom over Iraq. But, I mean, you've been flying. I don't know how many times you took off. How many traps you got, Mike Garcia?
Gosh, I probably have between 400 and 500 total traps or landings on an aircraft carrier. So, and it never gets old. It never you never get complacent around the boat, obviously. So, but I got to serve for about 15 years there, Annapolis grad, also a Georgetown master's degree from Georgetown in National Security Studies. For the last 11 years since getting out of the Navy, I've been in the aerospace business here, which in our district is a massive industry. It's really the backbone of our economy. So it's been a fantastic experience there, being in a leadership position there in aerospace. But yeah, nothing like flying an $80 million aircraft and the responsibilities that come with that, and helping our troops on the ground during Operation Iraqi Freedom was a real honor.
I love the picture of you and your wife and your two boys. And obviously, you got to go back there and fight for them. The country's in a pretty bad place right now because of the Chinese Communist Party. And it takes some clarity. How much has that issue driven the campaign, Mike Garcia, in California's 25th?
You know what? A pretty significant piece. You know, from because of where I come from and what I have access to and what I see now in the aerospace business, I've been pretty emphatic about the fact that, you know, for the last 2 years, really, that China isn't a near peer threat. It is a peer threat in several domains, and you know, whether it's cybersecurity, space, or otherwise, and now this not only the virus but also our dependency on them for pharmaceuticals and food and supplies. It's a real threat. We got to take it seriously, and this is a manifestation of a relative weakness to China as a result of the virus. But we've got to get to the bottom of it. We've had to investigate and figure out how we can insulate ourselves from this Chinese threat. It's a real problem.
Now, we also know California is on the ropes, and the recovery there is going to depend upon companies like your old company and basically every small business up there in Simi Valley. I just know the valley very well. The headquarters of Salem Broadcasting, I think, is in your district. They're going to need to be deregulated, not regulated. I like Gavin Newsom on TV, but honestly, that state's been badly run for 30 years. I don't know how they get out of this hole, Mike Garcia.
Yeah, there's really not a whole lot of leadership in Sacramento, unfortunately. Not a lot of folks who have had the business background and understand what's going on the ground here. Our district was especially hard hit with large amusement parks, but also Princess Cruises is headquartered here as well. So we have one of the higher unemployment rates in our district right now. We really do need to get the lights turned back on in a safe fashion, obviously still keeping the infection rates down, but also getting back to work and looking at the unemployment line as much. So, yes, we're subjected to what Gavin Newsom's going to be doing here, but he had so many levers in front of him that he should have thrown right away. I mean, there's tax relief bills that should have been initiated. There's a bill called AB 5, which is killing independent contractors, and that was a problem before COVID-19 that should have just been undone or hit paused on. And my opponent, she's been a supporter of Gavin Newsom and all these red tapes and higher tax bills that are really killing small businesses. So.
AB 5 is a nightmare, which is a story for another day. It really is destroying lives. But let me ask again, how do you campaign for Congress when you can't really knock on doors? You got 500 volunteers. What do they do?
Yeah, and we actually have now nationwide several thousand who are just making phone calls at this point for us. And literally being the squeaky wheel and calling until we have folks' votes counted and we take them off our list. So telling friends, family, and neighbors, we've also been doing virtual town halls where we're getting anywhere from 1,500 or 3,000 people on these town halls. They call in, they listen, and I've done probably close to 200 Zoom events in the last 7 to 8 weeks. So. It's a whole new world, but we've evolved, and my team, is superior in all ways, not just the volunteers, but also my staff and my campaign. So we've been able to evolve quicker, and I think we're going to be more effective in the end because of that.
Well, we're going to replay this tomorrow morning to remind people who are going to work. I'm reminding them right now that if they've got a ballot at home, just take it to your local polling place. Don't put it in the mail. I just don't trust these people out there. Show up and sign and vote for Mike Garcia tomorrow in California's 25th. Mike Garcia, thanks for all your time serving the country. Good luck tomorrow morning.
Thanks, Hugh. And if I could just remind folks, our website's electmikegarcia.com, and thanks for all the support. Hopefully Wednesday morning we're going to wake up with some great news. Thanks for the support, Hugh.
You bet. electmikegarcia.com. And then we just got to turn around and do it again because he's back on the November ballot. He's going to win, I think, on Wednesday, but then they're going to try and cheat on in November. electmikegarcia.com. A couple of pieces of business here. givingmasks.com/Hugh. That's a different website, different reason. You need to buy masks. Why? Because everyone's going to wear them for a while. That's simple. I went out twice yesterday for walks. One time I had on a scarf, which is a little bit easier to go for a long run with because you can drink the water. And then for short walks, you wear a mask, and you can go to givingmasks.com/Hugh. Why? Because if you get your masks from givingmasks.com, European certified FFP2 respirators and surgical masks, if you go to givingmask.com/Hugh, for every box you buy, they will send a box to CHOC, Children's Hospital of Orange County. I got to pick the person that would receive the matching box, and they said, okay. I said, CHOC. I've worked with the folks at CHOC for 2 decades, and they're the best. and they need these masks like everyone else does. So it's a good way to do good while getting what you need to have yourself. Surgical masks, givingmasks.com. Let me also remind you, on the day that we are celebrating Mike Garcia's election, you'll also have a chance at 7 p.m. Eastern. This is Wednesday, May 13th, 2 days from today. Wednesday, May 13th. You'll be able to join a live Facebook event, Not Allowed to Laugh, Free Speech and the Death of Comedy. Facebook live event hosted by Eric McTaxis. And Eric has made a strategic error. He's invited Anna Carolla, which is really good, but he's also invited Dennis Prager, because they're the guys that made No Safe Spaces. But when you invite Dennis to an event and you don't have me there to write him like Shoemaker writing Secretariat, it just is out of control. It's hard to write him in. But No Safe Spaces, it's going to be a great live event. Wednesday night, May 13th, 7 p.m. Eastern, Facebook, Not Allowed to Laugh. Go to nosafespaces.com for more information to get the DVD. If you want 25% off, just use the code SAVE25. SAVE25. And again, I'm going to remind you, I'm going to run down the news here. Our Angel Tree banner is up. We need you to support children who have a mom or dad in prison right now by sending them either a tape or getting them a box of blessings this summer. Headline: Iran fired on itself today. An Iranian-guided missile frigate shot an Iranian support boat, killed 19 Iranian sailors with an Iranian missile. They're still dangerous. They're also incompetent. Wuhan, home of the coronavirus, it's back. That story in the Financial Times, it's resurfaced in Wuhan. Bad news as well. 3 children in New York have died of a COVID-related condition. Up until this point, we thought the kids were free. 85 cases of a Kawasaki-like inflammatory syndrome, like Kawasaki syndrome, but it's not Kawasaki disease. It's different. They got abdominal pain, a blotchy rash, vomiting, persistent fever. It's inflammation. You got to take your kid to the hospital if they've got these symptoms. Do not. I always bring you the updated news. And China is trying very hard to steal, for monetary purposes, our vaccine research. It's the CCP. Honest to goodness. You got to send Mike Garcia to Congress. You also got to get relieffactor.com. There it is. I'm 15 minutes away from being on the road. That's what I do right after the show. Work off the energy with relieffactor.com. Even if you've got lower back pain like I do, even if you've got bad ankles, bad knees, you make noise when you move like Dwayne. When Dwayne gets on the scooter, it sounds like the Tyrannosaurus Rex in Jurassic Park moving through the forest. Even if that's you, you got to take relieffactor.com. Adam kind of laughed at that because it's true. When Dwayne moves, you can hear him coming. He's like the T-Rex coming through the forest, and he needs to take more relieffactor.com. When he gets on his scooter, it makes noises just like the Velociraptor coming for you. So relieffactor.com, my Karen Kirkman resveratrol omega, the natural supplements you need, $19.95. Don't forget Honor Bound Coffee as well. HonorBoundCoffee.com takes care of the military families in America. 100% of the profits go to them. HonorBoundCoffee.com. Come right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America. Captain Mark Vandroff asking me to play his favorite music today. He's probably wearing his Travolta threads to work today. He's so happy. I'm joined by Tim Alberta, another disco king. And Tim Alberta, before we get to politics, there is a leak from Major League Baseball that suggests a new season will involve, I think I'm pretty excited about this, grouping teams geographically, which means your Tigers and my Indians would play the dastardly Cubs, the Patsy Pirates, and the ever ominous Reds in a great division. I mean, it would be terrific for one season.
Yeah, I think too. Look, I'm sort of the mindset here that if they wind up playing, which is a big if, and we're hearing all kinds of different contingency plans leaked over the last 3-4 weeks here, but that if they play this season, there's going to wind up being a giant asterisk attached to it in the minds of many people anyway. So why not experiment and do all kinds of crazy different things, including new divisions, including doubleheaders, including 7-inning games. I mean, maybe even try the robot umpires if you're so inclined. I love it. I think why not experiment a little bit, because these are strange times and we're never going to have a season quite like this one anyway.
What do you think about celebrity umpires? Because I think I'd be pretty good. Dwayne has been an umpire for years, ruining Little League lives left and right, ejecting 10-year-olds from games. But I think celebrity umpires would be a very good idea, because it basically, we've got blind people behind the plate anyway.
This would be a very generous definition of celebrity, if I'm being totally honest with you. But I do like the idea, and in fact, one of my first jobs was umpiring many years ago. And
hey, Tim, let me ask you a question. Tim,
I can push the
Tim, I got to ask you a question.
You got him out of his lair. You woke him up, Alberta.
If Aroldis Chapman threw a fastball, one pitch to Hugh as a celebrity umpire, you think Hugh's got to stay anywhere near home plate?
No. None of
He's got to be running like a little girl.
Hey, Dwayne, don't be mad at me. Tim was the one who suggested that you wouldn't qualify for celebrity umpire. It was not me.
Oh, that wasn't exactly a shot at Dwayne, but we'll let sleeping dogs lie.
So anyway, we are all agreed, though, bring baseball back. But what do you think about the Tigers and the Indians playing the Cubs, the Reds, and the Pirates? They play a little interleague division anyway, but that number of games would be terrific.
Oh, I think it'd be great. Look, I think it'd be great. I really do. Especially some of these teams have pretty decent rivalries anyway. Just because before the interleague play even began, there was you had certain just geographic rivalries, in the sense that you have fans living on top of each other where people had to choose, and there was sort of these Cold War rivalries where the teams never played, but that wasn't the point. You either rooted for one team or the other. So it'd be a lot of fun. I mean, I don't see any reason why not to get creative with this, especially, again, knowing that you're going to probably have a condensed schedule, that you're going to have a lot of people who are treating this as sort of an asterisk season anyway.
And everybody wants to play the Pirates. I mean, right? Everybody wants to play the Pirates. That's basically a W. Let me ask you, though, this is too much baseball, but I got to ask, a 7-inning game? I haven't seen that. That's the one that I might draw the line at that. A 7-inning game, Tim?
No, so let me clarify. We're talking 7-inning doubleheaders. So you would essentially stack the schedule with double headers, but they would be 7-inning games, and that was one of many ideas that I've heard floated in the last few weeks. And frankly, I'm not totally against it. I think that if you're trying to make up,
of course, because you don't have a closer.
Yeah, that's exactly.
You don't need a closer anymore. Of course you like it, Tim.
No. Hold on. Now, every team, especially the teams like mine that are deprived of a bullpen, yes, they would enjoy it. But if you're worried about a lack of sports, imagine 3 times a week having a doubleheader to watch. It'd be great.
Why not start with a runner on second if there's a tie?
Go away, would you? Go back to your lair. I got to ask Alberta a serious question.
Get
Tim,
off my lawn.
I think we got 1 minute. The Flynn story is going to get bigger this week, or is it going to get smaller? What do you think?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's that probably depends an awful lot on what kind of news you consume. Not to give a cop out answer, but I imagine on the right that it probably rose a little bit, and in the mainstream media, I'm guessing there's not a whole lot of attention paid to it. I could be wrong on that, but it seems it will grow to sort of proportionally to the amount of attention the president tries to give it, and that itself I expect to grow. But over the weekend we haven't seen a whole lot. So,
Tim Alberta, we will follow that. We will follow that closely. Always a pleasure. Everybody in the American League Central Division wants to play the Pirates. Let's just agree on that. Everybody wants to play the Pirates. Carl, I hope you and Salena Zito get together and get your little pirate pennant flags out because everybody wants to play you. Adam, thank you. Ben, thank you. Generalissimo, it's just amazing you woke up. Thank you. Good to have you all here. We'll be back tomorrow, America, with the next Hugh Hewitt Show.